Good evening and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, March 4th, 2024. Let the record show that the meeting will start at 6:30. I would like to make recognition note that all council members are present this evening. And would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now that moves us on to item number 4, and there is no general tonight. Item 5 is committee correspondence to council. Are there any correspondence this evening? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Just a repeat of an announcement I made at the last council meeting. This coming Wednesday, March 6th, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. right here in the council chambers. We'll have the city's first Climate Adaptation and Action Plan Committee meeting. All are welcome to attend. We're trying to map out a roadmap for the next 10 years of Saco's climate future, so your input would be welcome. So hopefully you can attend. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McPhail. Also an announcement, this Friday, March 8th, from 9:30 to 11 a.m., the City of Saco and SOS Saco Bay are co-sponsoring the 5th Annual Saco Bay Coastal Erosion Symposium. There will be a number of speakers and panelists speaking to address erosion and the effects on our coastline. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee correspondence? Okay, not seeing any. That moves on to item 6, and that is public comment this evening. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, not seeing anyone asking to be recognized. Moves us on to item number 7, and that is consent items. There is one item tonight, massage therapist license application for Julie Anna Littlefield. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Berman. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Councilor Hatch. Roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Now takes us to item number 8, and that is action items this evening. Action item A is the second and final reading, budget amendment number 4, residential properties, measure and list, and that is assigned to Councilor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. The City of Saco issued a request for proposals, or an RFP, for the residential measure, list, and photographing in October 2023 with a due date of November 1st, 2023. We received a proposal from Vision Government Solutions for $386,000. The quote is good until April 29th, 2024. Additionally, the city has hired KRT Appraisal to perform a cyclical audit of all businesses in the spring of 2024. The city budgeted $250,000 from unassigned fund balance for fiscal year 2024 to cover the cost of the measure and list services. The final budget amendment includes vision, measure, and list of $386,000, personal property audit of $40,000, and minus the amount budgeted for fiscal year 2024 of $250,000 gives us the budget amendment amount of $176,000. Be it ordered that council approve the second and final reading of budget amendment number 4, residential properties measure and list, and I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I have no problem with the budget amendment for the purposes for which it's intended. I did have a question about whether or not we've considered any possible penalties for violations that we find to be somewhat excessive, folks who have maybe built something that was substantial that never received the permit. So I don't, it's a question that I don't have an answer to.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Maybe, I don't know if Kate or David could maybe speak to that.
And I'm not trying to be nitpicky. I think that, you could pick a dollar amount that was, $10,000 or higher.
Good evening.
Yes.
Most of the time, we'll do after-the-fact permits. If it's an honest mistake, usually we'll just charge them the cost of the permit. If it's a flagrant, we can double fee the permits.
So 2 times the fee?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And
if
you
there-
use your discretion when
Yes.
that occurs?
A lot of times, it's owner before the last owner,
Yeah.
did something, but
All
yes.
right, I trust your judgment. So,
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Counselor Rocher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that takes us to item B, and that is a public hearing. Housekeeping ordinance amendments to Chapter 179, Site Plan Review, 188, Subdivision of Land, and 230, Zoning. And that is assigned to Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. City staff worked together to identify areas of ambiguity within Chapters 179, 188, and 230 of Saco's ordinance. The overall goal of the housekeeping ordinance amendment is to add cross-references to other key ordinance sections, clarify uses and definitions, to remove duplicate uses and definitions, and better align zoning descriptions with the uses within zones. I move to open the public hearing.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Roll call vote. Counselor Rocher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to open the public hearing passes 7-0. Public hearing is now open. If there are any members wishing to speak on this item, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you, Sandra Gay, 52 Cumberland Ave, Saco. I just have one comment, and I don't know exactly what section, but it's in the definitions. And I appreciate trying to clarify and clean this up. So the definition of fast food restaurant was taken out, but under food and drink, the term fast food is still used in quotes. And I just think that for somebody who works with a lot of ordinances, there could be some disagreement down the road about what exactly is meant by fast food. It may seem obvious, but if somebody's promoting a certain kind of a business that has certain kinds of food in it, there may be a question. So my only comment is whether all of that definition of fast food should be removed or if some of it should be incorporated into the eating establishment definition.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone recognized. Counselor Hatch?
I move to close the public hearing and schedule the second and final reading for March 18th, 2024.
Motion has been made to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion or comment? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Rocher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to close the public hearing passes 7-0, and this will be scheduled for March 18th. Okay, that now takes us to item C, and that is a final reading. Petition for zoning map amendment filed by Bedard Properties LLC to change the zoning of a portion of map 87, lot 17, from rural conservation RC to West Residential WR zoning district. And that is Counselor Archer.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to reserve my right to speak against this motion, so I will be not making this motion.
Okay, is there a counselor wishing to accept the motion? Counselor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see here. Bedard Properties LLC, requested by DM Roma Consulting Engineers, has filed a pension for zoning map amendment to change the zoning of a portion of map 87, lot 17, from the rural conservation to the west residential zoning district. Be it ordered that the city council, I suppose I have my,
You make your choice, yep.
approves the zoning map amendment pension request filed by Bedard Properties to change the zoning of a portion of map 87, lot 17, from the rural conservation to the west residential zoning district. I move to approve the order.
Motion has made to approve the order by Counselor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Any discussion or comments? Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm just going to explain why I will be voting against this approval. I just have some concerns about, first of all, the way that particular area has vacillated back and forth over the last, since the zoning ordinance was changed. I really don't like participating in that kind of quick change activity. But more importantly, I went back to the comp plan and reviewed a couple sections of it that I think really helps me support my vote against this change. The whole issue of extending sewer lines down Route 5 has, I think, numerous issues that we have to think about long-term. The first of which is the obvious sprawl that will result from that. And the fact that we do have, within our comprehensive plan, lots of thoughts about preserving our rural areas. Policy 3-2 specifically in our comp plan, which is on page 36 of it, states that we will protect rural areas, natural settings without existing public water and sewer from encroaching development by encouraging new housing development at greater densities in areas with existing public infrastructure. And we've talked about that as a council, access to public water and sewer as a focal point for future development. And I think that, personally, I think that kind of attitude is in the best interest of the city of Saco. We have to figure out ways to somewhat mitigate the residential growth while we find plans and policies that can encourage commercial development and commercial tax base. And so I see this zone change as being sort of counterintuitive to all of that. And by the way, according to the comp plan, when it was developed, there's a list of comments that shape the goals and policy recommendations. And the two comments that received most support from the community was the protection of natural settings in rural areas without existing public water and sewer, just as the policy was stated a minute ago by me. So on that basis, I'm going to be voting against this approval and with an intention to keep that area as rural conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Hatch. Counselor Johnston.
Well, thank you. Not feeling myself, so you'll have to forgive me. I guess I'll just start with the purpose as defined in the ordinance as it stands today, presently, for the Rural Conservation District. The Rural Conservation District is designed to promote and preserve agriculture, agricultural soils, and open space while permitting low-density residential uses that do not conflict with the rural character of this area of Saco. The RC District has protected conservation land and plays an important role in establishing greenways and preserving wildlife habitat. Now, for the West residential purpose, the West Residential District is predominantly residential district intended to provide higher density residential use where sewer and water is available than other areas west of I-95. So, I mean, just off the definitions alone, it seems clear to me that even if you were to add this parcel of land into the West Residential, it still runs afoul to what the purpose is, as there today is not easily accessible sewer and water. There are several parcels in between the property that has ran sewer and water out there that have yet to be developed to the standards that we allow in the ordinance. So again, in line with Councilor Hatch, it's my opinion, this is not consistent with a comprehensive plan. By all accounts, it really is the definition of sprawl. You are moving faster or into a zone that is designated a certain way faster than you've already developed other land. And so that's been my concern as long as I've sat here on council, is again, one of the largest things that council is tasked with is, determining orderly rate of growth. We do that through our ordinances. Unfortunately, in the past 10 years or so, we've routinely not stuck to plans that we've laid out and kind of done these one-off, oh, well, I don't like the way the zone is, so I'll ask for an amendment. And again, it's there for that reason. I don't, blame anybody for asking, but certainly it's more than just switching back, as has been indicated by the applicant. And I won't go into the details or bore you all, I guess, with the history of what this was, why it became one way, but I will say that the underlying reason this was included in what was the R1D and now is the West Residential was there was no sewer, and it was an understanding that 40,000 square foot lot was needed to build upon. It was a natural buffer. Now, clearly, a decade ago or thereabouts, we had a project come forward, they extended the sewer, that has put it, at the precipice, I guess, of this zone, which again has opened this up to developmental pressures, one of which that I'm not, open to exploring at present day. Like I said, there's more developable land before you get to this land. I certainly had no problem or qualms about switching this back into conservation land. I sat through comp plan update, zoning revision ordinance, and all along I wasn't really comfortable with having this land designated the way it was at that time. So I viewed this when the request came back as an opportunity to preserve this land and, extend the viability of farmland by allowing solar, which was the intent. So I think, like I said, there is ample land in this community that is zoned appropriately. Ones that have, again, greater densities currently that would allow this land. The idea of expanding sewer out onto Route 5 when, again, just throwing it out there, we could extend the sewer further out on the Buxton Road or complete the Jenkins Road before we go into a whole nother direction and create the same problems or developmental growth challenges we've had throughout the history of Saco. I mean, this is literally, again, my opinion, definition of insanity, where you just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. We do this, yes, the sewer will be there. Great for the developer. Again, I don't have that luxury of looking at it from just one parcel. I know what will come with it because I've lived here long enough to see it. Requests for sidewalks will come. Who's going to pay for those? Requests for more growth will come. Requests for more police will come. Fire will come. We've laid it out where we want growth. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that we don't need to make some changes to encourage growth in those areas before we go north Saco. But to just continue in that type of development to me is really kind of crazy. And certainly one I don't support. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a bit conflicted about this, and I understand the perspectives of the counselors who have spoken, and I greatly value the rural conservation zone and the goals it's trying to achieve, and I want to keep the rural conservation zone largely intact. But I do think it's important to note that this was originally in the West residential zone, thus that this isn't so much a change as a change back. And speaking against a culture of rapid changes or one-off parcels and fixing zoning that way would have led us to not approve the prior change, leaving this as West residential. I also very much want to respect the planning board and their process. However, as I read their findings in their report, it appears that at least one finding is based on a misunderstanding. As far as I understand, there is no intent to connect routes 112 and 5. This may also mitigate some of the concerns the planning board had about the Deep Brook, which I also greatly value and want to preserve. We've been hearing a fair amount about the comprehensive plan and its goals, both during the public hearing and so far today. Of course, when you look at the map in the comprehensive plan, this parcel was listed as West residential. If we're going to adhere to the comprehensive plan, this should be a West residential parcel. I understand the challenges that come with growth. They will come, and there are significant challenges. Nevertheless, we have a substantial need for more housing in our state, in our region, and in our town. And I think we all agree that smaller, more affordable, not capital A affordable housing, but more affordable housing is the better option. Well, I'd prefer to see that housing in already developed areas, right? I'd like to see us densify those areas that are already built. I feel like I have to give credence to the original comprehensive plan and the original zoning. We need more housing, so I intend to support this change.
Thank you. Councilor Archer.
Yes, I'll be brief. I did speak to the planning board as my right as a citizen, so I'm just going to be brief, but some of the points I picked out were the Fendersons argued to the city that they were zoned wrong. Back when we first were looking at it, they didn't realize their property was actually going to be zoned that way, and they're the ones who petitioned to change it back, recognizing that there was not a flaw in the process, but just that they were overlooked, just easiest way to put it. Other parts that I've also mentioned where this is not about not developing the property, it's about the density of this property. This property can still be developed. There are plans on how this land can be developed, so housing is still on the table. It's just not done through the density perspective. That's really all I have to say, but again, the planning board did say to keep it the same, and I did argue for conservation reasons as well, but also recognizing that the applicant still has the right to build, just not at that density that he has identified. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with the comp plans, and I would say that both the 2011 and the 2021, 2022 was pretty particular about highlighting the concerns about sprawl into farmland. So while this, as you've indicated, may have been zoned a certain way, I again go back to what the sewer requirements were. There was still a 40,000, or I think it actually shrunk down to 30,000 square foot limitation on the West residential. I was one of the opinion that actually felt the area should have been zoned as low density. But again, I mean, I was one of many, and I would still say that if you're going to have higher densities, it would make more sense that you had the low density residential zone than just jumping and essentially tripling the densities from RC to West residential. It doesn't fit anything in that area. You can argue Labonte's project, but I will argue that that was a contract zone. So it certainly isn't similar to, I don't know, 20 or so properties that exist north of Labonte's project on Route 5. It's not similar at all. So again, I just go back to the idea. Yes, we need housing. I get that. We have adequately zoned areas to encourage that infill. We just had a state law that this council just, approved or adopted that is supposed to encourage more infill. It's supposed to, build up these vacant lots in our downtown areas or other zones. It's just illogical to me to think that you're just going to continually expand, particularly in the area of single-family homes, which are the opposite of conservation. They eat up more space for less people, create more traffic. So again, for all those reasons, I'm opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote. Counselor Archer.
No?
Counselor Parks.
No.
Counselor Gunn.
Yes.
Counselor Berman.
Yes.
Counselor Hatch.
No.
Counselor Hewitt.
No.
Counselor Johnston.
No.
Motion fails 5-0. Okay, that takes us to item D. That is the final reading. Petition for zoning map amendment filed by Kafufa Management Company, LLC, to change the zoning of map 55, lots 1-3, lots 1-1, 3, and 6, from business industrial, BI, to highway business, HB zoning district, and that is Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Kafua Management Company, LLC, represented by Archipelago Law, has filed the enclosed petition for zoning map amendments to change the zoning of map 55, lots 1-1, 3, 5, and 6, from the business industrial, or BI, zone to the highway business, or HB, zoning district. Be it ordered that the City Council deny the zoning map amendment petition request filed by Kafua Management Company, LLC, to change the zoning of map 55, lots 1-1, 3, 5, and 6, from the business industrial BI to highway business HB zoning district.
Second.
Motion has been made to deny the order, second by Counselor Hatch, second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion or comment? Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I just wanted to go on the record as explaining my vote or my motion to deny. I had a similar problem with the zoning discussion with this as well. I'm just not a big fan of spot zoning, which I think this is an example of. I think that it would be wise for us as a community in a broader sense to give a little more time to see how that industrial park corridor reacts to not only the changes that are going to occur on access to the main turnpike, which everybody assumes is going to reduce traffic on the industrial park artery, which could easily occur, but what we fail to stop and think about is the replacement traffic that is likely to occur given the opportunities for some major residential development. In my ward, there's 2 large lots in my ward that are ripe for development. And the traffic that will ensue from Biddeford when their projects along the river occur and folks are fighting to get to the turnpike going north and coming through Saco. So I think it would be smart for us to sit back, relax. We just changed the zoning ordinance. We just changed the maps. Just relax for a little bit. Let these changes occur. Let's evaluate the changes. And we also have a traffic study that's going on within the city, help us get a handle on what's going on in the area, and just wait until things can be measured. This assumption that traffic is going to change, it's going to improve, if we can put something with a high traffic impact on that route, to me is just short-sighted. And I would just suggest that we just sit back and wait, and if at a future point we have all the evidence before us, then maybe it's appropriate to do something then. I also, I was at the planning board for these discussions. There was some, and I don't have the exact dimensions of the HB district, but there's some highway business district zoning use along that Route 112 corridor, and my only suggestion might be, if this is a use that needs to be somewhere in that neighborhood, that we find a spot in the existing highway business district instead of extending it into the industrial park corridor, which I think, again, would be very, very premature. So that's my rationale for voting to deny this.
Thank you. Councilor Berman, then Councilor Johnston.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So honestly, I was torn a bit about this one too, but I would like to note something first. When I read the planning board report, at least one member talks about not wanting to see new amendments so soon after the zoning process. And I just want to say I can't disagree with that sentiment more. First, 2001 is quite a few years ago. The process took quite a while. Our needs change, right? The use changes. This is why we have this process. That this is the way it's supposed to work. Asking for it in this way is much better than a contract zone. Right? Whether it passes or fails here, this is the way it should work. So I would strongly discourage the planning board from taking that attitude, that there needs to be some period of time after a zoning ordinance passes before amendments can be considered. Second of all, when I look at the zoning map and I look at the planned uses, this region looks a lot like the highway business zone to me. It looks like it already in the current uses. It looks like it where it's laid out. It looks like it in the traffic that passes by. So while I'm not sure that I favor the particular use planned, I don't think that's our job. This isn't about a particular project. This is about the zoning. And to me, this area looks like it fits the bill for what the highway business zone should be, and therefore I can be supportive.
Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with Councilor Berman in the sense that we certainly can't look at this through the lens of a singular restaurant or request. I'll be front and center and acknowledge the fact that there's probably not another person up here that consumes as much Dunkin' Donuts as I do. And certainly if it was there, I believe, particularly with my children going out to SMS next year, I probably very likely would be a customer. And I guess from my perspective, therein lies the problem. And I say we, I mean councils, comp plans, you name it, zoning ordinance revision. This is certainly a subject that has come across many desks through the years, and I mean probably 20 or more years. And so certainly on the surface, I can understand why an applicant or a property owner would be interested. I mean, the sheer volume of traffic tells anybody that is looking for this type of use, this is a good location. It makes sense, from a business standpoint. But again, I go back to plan after plan, study after study, and we use these terms like smart growth, and then we do the exact opposite by actions, generally speaking, at council level. We identify, or we've identified problem areas, and then we ignore them, or we worsen them with our actions. And again, I guess from my perspective, it's the inability to see the bigger picture. It's looking at things through the here and now, or the standard definition versus high definition. And again, the ask isn't specific to just one use. It's extensive about or as far as the high uses of, what could potentially be there. I mean, some of them includes housing. Is that the best area for housing? I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. But from my perspective, yeah, while there's housing development that's in my ward right behind it, it's not, that's like a tight-knit neighborhood, not something that you would envision on a road that has 40 miles per hour, I believe. So I think, when council looked at this in the past, I had indicated that I'm certainly open to the ideas having a visioning study for this area, perhaps, and again, I'm just saying perhaps, because I don't know, but perhaps that area is no longer the way it was envisioned, or should be the way it was envisioned 20, 30, 40 years ago, where it was really viewed more of an industrial area, not a high use from restaurants and what have you. But, what was it, 2 years ago, thereabouts, council made some amendments. They added food uses. They allowed marijuana shops. From what I'm told, that marijuana shop is one of the more active locations. And it's become problematic because it's on a tiny lot and it has a curb cut that's cutting in and out. So it's not hard to imagine what that area would look like from a transportation perspective with drive-throughs, regardless of one shared curb cut. Again, that's one lot. What happens to the other lots? What happens to the people across the street that then turn around and say, well, you gave it to them, why not us? Because again, that was the original request from those on the other side of the BI zone. This is a highlighted choke point in Saco. We've known about it, so much to the point that the state's spending $40+ million to try to alleviate some of the traffic through the area. And that data is based off of 2017, 2018, information. That's, as Councilor Hatch indicated, that doesn't take into account future housing developments that, could come forth or will come forth. So particularly when, I hear comments or whatnot from experts that say, oh, well, traffic's already there, we're just pulling off from it. It won't increase traffic. Well, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I live it on the daily where I live. You put a high use, it's constant. It's not, oh, well, it was already there. No, what you've created is a destination. They're going to turn in more often. Why else would you put the location there? You're not going to invest and build this out if you're not intending to increase sales, not just spread out the sales from Biddeford or Saco here. So while there may be some of that, that's not going to be the reality. The intention is to entice people that normally were driving along saying, hey, now it's there and now I'll go there. And in lies the issue. The state designed this exit to get people out of that corridor, not into the corridor. So you put that, you then add a McDonald's, you add whatever else, and now you've created destinations where before, when this opened, the exit opened, they would just take the exit, go north, or they would have gone south, further up the road. Now they're going to go into it, into the corridor we're trying to get them out of to go get, something that they desire. I don't understand how we continue, to grow in this manner. You also increase developmental pressures on locations like Marymount. I mean, you make that a gold mine for them. And at that point, it's a community asset that we've had there since the 1970s. And now it's like, okay, well, someone comes a knocking because the land value is there, and you push them out. Well, where do they go? We sprawl outward to go find a new baseball field. I mean, it's just continuous. I don't get it. From my perspective, as I've said, as Councilor Hatch has said, let's at least figure out what happens when the exit opens. And then if we want to re-envision, reimagine the whole area, I'm game to that. I mean, we have, as was indicated, several lots that are already zoned as HB on North Street. I don't know if all of you are aware of this, but there's a proposal out there that has a pretty significant gas station coming forth that's going to add a whole bunch of traffic into that corridor. Now, it's on the corner of the Lund Road. Maybe when we get it signalization, it'll be a little bit better. But I'd much rather develop that area with a plan in place to maybe perhaps move into the Lund Road further and have these uses that we desire in there and not out on our regular throughways. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to clog up the streets, and we'll sit here and listen, night after night, meeting after meeting, people complain about traffic issues, yet we make them worse. So it's clear, where I am with this. I don't fault anybody for asking, but I mean, I guess I just, to me, this is akin to going to your cardiologist. They tell you your arteries are clogged, you're going to have a heart attack. You finish your appointment, and then he turns around and says, "Want to go get a burger and fries?" Right? Like, come on. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Archer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, for me, this is just about timing. We are a year away from this turnpike being created. Traffic studies are done, but they're done as a point in time, and they do forecast future growth. Don't get me wrong there. However, how do you forecast future growth when it's a turnpike? My concern, again, for now, is that it will drive traffic from the west side of the turnpike to the east side, which is the reason why we're having this turnpike being constructed. So for me, it's more about timing. I would see it as a better fit, probably from initially some traffic studies from the new turnpike on how it's going to disperse traffic away, or is it going to disperse traffic in? We don't really know right now. And I'm just thinking a traffic study once the turnpike is created, recognizing how the traffic flows through the arteries, how that goes, happens, and then make that decision now. For me, this is just about bad timing. So if it wasn't for a future turnpike coming, I'd probably be for it, but at this time, I'm against it only for timing reasons.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Gunn, then Counselor Berman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to make a couple of points for this points of this discussion. When it comes to expanding or altering the business district as a principle, I have no issue with that because, as we've seen, envisioned as a industrial park, at least on that part, below the interstate overpass that we've seen with the bank, with the marijuana business, with storage, and it's become a little bit more diversified. So as a long-term goal, I see no issue with it being expanded as a business district. That being said, as others have mentioned, we are very shortly going to have the new exit opened, and the whole point of having the new exit opened is to convince, just by having it, all the Poland Spring and other trucking traffic that contributes to the loggerneck of traffic that we have there, to take that exit, to try to open up the industrial park corridor to the interstate for local traffic, or to try to make it a little bit easier. Now, we have no way of knowing if that's actually going to happen, in the sense that short of creating local ordinances like they do in Portland that prohibit trucks of a certain size from using the side streets or something of that nature, we can't, that's the only way we can actually convince, or force basically, truckers to actually not take their 18-wheelers through the industrial park after we build, after we have the new exit built. So that's another subject for another time, though, but of course that folds into the traffic debate itself. And speaking of the traffic debate, if in the industrial park, as well as other places on Route 1 that are problematic, such as stretches of Route 1 by perhaps where the fast food is, I've always said ruefully that traffic islands would not be the worst situation there, because choke points in the city versus left-hand turns versus busy times of day have become a real issue in terms of getting from here to there, where it takes you a half hour to get 5 blocks on a straight stretch of road. And I used to joke, though, this isn't Wells, though, where we have a light every intersection. But once people start making left-hand turns, that becomes a reality. Now, Councilor Berman's point, we can't really match this up with the specific business request. And to Councilor Johnson's point, yes, I have no problem with the business in principle. It's a fine business. That being said, without any traffic mitigation measures, such as preventing or discouraging a left-hand turn from people getting off at the exit 1 from the interstate, we are encouraging left-hand turns towards the end of the intersection in the worst possible place at the worst possible times, when we don't have the mitigation effort of the new exit installed. So that's why I am a sort of don't say never on this, but we need to have the right situation when it comes to the traffic, how we alter, if anything, industrial park, or what the actual end result of the new exit's going to be. So when those two measurable factors are before us, when I have no issue, and when it comes to altering or expanding the business district, because I think logically that's where it's going. But in terms of just basically giving, the main way in and out of the city outside of Route 1, it's hard enough on people, and it's just right now, I see too many issues with this going forward with how things are as the moment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to waste anybody's time arguing what can't be convinced, but there is a theme coming through this discussion that I find just a little bit problematic. And there's a conservatism of a wait and see till things settle out. Sure, the exit's going to be built, and that will move traffic. And after that, we have hundreds of new units coming on in Biddeford, and they're going to adjust traffic. And we can see that far today. But we know that when that finishes, there's going to be another major project or development on the horizon, and then one after that. And in fact, the word used was never ends, and indeed, it will never end. There's not going to be a period when growth slows down and we can see how it's affected the community and then pause and take stock. That moment won't come, right? We are in a period of rapid growth for our region and intense housing need and intense growing pressure that is just going to continue. So I agree with Councilor Johnston's comments that we say the word smart growth and we don't always mean it. But we talk about studies that we haven't planned and we haven't funded, and we wait for a time when it will be convenient or make more sense, but it's not going to slow. It is never ending. The growth is exponential, and that curve is going to continue, and we find ourselves on it, and the change is rapid, and people want to pause it, but simply saying no doesn't pause that. It's going to continue apace, and we have to make adjustments, and we have to prepare for that growth, and we have to acknowledge that the growth is occurring and make our decisions based on it, not waiting for the period when we can pause and slow and take that time to reflect. So whether this passes or not isn't really my point. My point is that idea that there's some time in the future when it's going to be easier to see where it's going and what the growth did. I don't think that time is going to come, and I think we have to make these decisions anyway.
Thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think anybody up here, at least I speak for myself, is intent on just waiting and seeing. But I do think that, again, I've spent my whole life here. I all the time drive around this community, look around and go, wow, we really missed an opportunity there. Missed an opportunity there. I missed an opportunity there. I mean, I've been here long enough now that I look at things like, oh, we really should have thought about that. And that, goes back to, and I've said this from the dais before, something I learned as a young Marine, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. That's something that for a long time, whether the intent was there in the city of Saco, with the leaders, with staff, plans weren't necessarily implemented. I think we're getting to a position where we recognize that. And I certainly don't want to be responsible for creating the industrial park, turning that into Hamburger Alley, because we all know the challenges that exist up there, and we missed opportunity after opportunity to design that appropriately. That's all I'm suggesting. Again, I'm not, the merits of whether or not this type of use should be there versus what historically, it has been there is for another night in my mind. It's, again, you need to take a comprehensive look at the future of it and not take this approach where we're going to kind of hodgepodge zones to fit requests, which, again, they're valid. You certainly can ask, not trying to encourage people not to ask, because, again, maybe it is a good opportunity. But overall, when I look at this area and having had dealt with it on several prior occurrences, I think it's a liability to encourage those types of uses without some level of plan in place for the future. And that's what I would want to work towards, instead of just throwing it down in there. I mean, I hate to disparage my neighbor state of Massachusetts, but I often do, and that's what we're creeping towards, is looking like every other town in Massachusetts that we all, when you go down there and then you come back, to Maine, everybody complains about how awful everything is. Well, that's why, because nobody planned well. They just did, and I'd like to avoid that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. I'm just going to wrap this up because you struck a nerve, Councilor Johnston. In business, planning, good planning is a predictive science. It involves a significant amount of critical thinking, gathering evidence, and trying to come up with action plans that are proactive, not reactive. And the businesses who engage in that process appropriately are typically the ones that you see and they survive for long periods of time. So that's all I'm suggesting here, is that we just take a timeout. I learned this, when I was younger in business, I would react like instantaneously until one day I figured it out. You don't get anywhere doing that, and when you do, sometimes you react improperly. So sit back, wait a day or two before you react, and think about it. And so all I'm suggesting here is that's what we need for this particular issue. It has nothing to do with the use, has nothing to do with the parties involved in the use. All I'm suggesting is if we want to move this council to a level of predictive science and good planning, then we have to put the brakes on reactive decision-making and proactively engage in vetting the future of whatever it is we're trying to decide. So that's really where I'm coming from, and that's what motivated me to posture the motion as a denial.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the motion on the floor is to deny the petition. Roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
No. Oh, to deny?
To deny.
Correction, yes.
I'm sorry? Counselor Park?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
No.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay, that now takes us to item E, and that is a public hearing, renewal application for special entertainment permit for Biddeford Saco Country Club, and that is Counselor Berman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Biddeford Saco Country Club has applied for the renewal of their special entertainment permit. The permit will be concurrent with the establishment's liquor license. The applicant has paid all applicable permit fees, and the clerk has properly advised the public hearing in accordance with Saco City Code, Chapter 93, Entertainment Section 93-2. I move to open the public hearing.
Motion has been made to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Hatch. Roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Public hearing is now open. If there is any member of the public wishing to speak, please step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, we are not seeing anyone being recognized. Counselor Berman?
I move to close the public hearing and be it ordered that the City Council grant the renewal application submitted by the Biddeford Saco Country Club for a special entertainment permit to be concurrent with the establishment's current liquor license. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Berman. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Hatch. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that now takes us to item F, and that is the item tabled February 26, 2024, Rules and Order of Business. Is there a motion to untable?
So moved?
Motion to untable has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Counselor Gunn. Roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to untable passes 7-0, and that is assigned to Counselor Archer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, long day today. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 2.08 Bravo of the City Charter, the council is required to develop its own rules and order of business at the first meeting of the newly elected council each year. Changes were proposed and shared with council at the January 22nd, 2024 workshop. The city council hereby approves the recommended changes made to the rules and order of business as identified in Exhibit 1.
Motion has been made by Counselor Archer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Gunn. Any discussion? Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Glad to see that Rule 38 is in there for the parliamentarians, so I appreciate that, John. I would just like to add a friendly amendment, if I could, to the vote to approve this, and that would be to go ahead and satisfy the requirements of Rule 38, and that is to nominate a parliamentarian. So I'd like to add a friendly amendment to tonight's motion to propose that Councilor Johnston be designated as City Council parliamentarian.
Should that be,
It's a friendly amendment, so who made the motion?
okay, we can do it as an amendment for a new vote on that? Okay. Counselor Archer, are you willing to accept that amendment?
Just wondering if we're allowed to do it this way.
Well-
That's the question. It's not, I'm for you, I'm just wondering if we're allowed to do it. We haven't even voted on the rules.
Great.
Right, yeah.
And then it's an appointment.
So, Your Honor, my suggestion, yeah. My suggestion would be, because we don't have any real parliamentary issues right now other than this, I would say that tonight, pass the rules, come back at the next meeting, and then nominate a person for the parliamentarian.
I'm okay with that. I just wanted to save us a step, so
Yeah.
I'm good.
Appreciate
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion or comments on the rules? Counselor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reflecting on last week's discussion, I have a question for the city administrator because I had raised the issue of would it not behoove us to have a parliamentarian that is the city administrator or city clerk or somebody who is basically not involved in the debate, so therefore you can never make an accusation that there's any factionalism in the middle of a debate for a parliamentary decision when you certainly are as neutral a person, or the city clerk would be, as possible. So why was that not included in this language?
We did a review of various towns, how they handle it. Some do exactly what you say. Some do it with the mayor. Some do other things that, for whatever reason, is unique to those communities. These are your rules. So, I mean, if the council feels more inclined to do what you're suggesting, Counselor, I have no problem with it. I just had to fill, I guess what I wanted to do is, at the very least, get the rules adopted so that the council has rules in order to follow. At any time, it should be noted that the council can bring back with notice for the next meeting, if a council member working with the mayor wants to make it an amendment to these rules, they can do it with the proper, notice. I quite frankly, if you want to make me the parliamentarian, I don't have a problem. The one thing I want to stress is these are your rules. I had to come up with something to put in there, and that's what I put in there. I have nothing against being the parliamentarian, but I just thought that at this particular point, from the body, it would be useful. And if there is a challenge to the rules of the parliamentarian, there's always the option that the city council could table the matter that's in front of them, in front of you, and that there could be a legal opinion rendered. So that's where I'm at. It's not specifically that I ignored that request. It just is one of those things that, to move it forward.
And Councilor Gunn, you can also make an amendment to remove it and
Well-
see how council feels to get the,
Well, to respond, I didn't, certainly wasn't implying that you, ignored it, though. I just wanted explanation for the record. That being the case, I am not closed to the idea of having a member of the body, a counselor being the parliamentarian. To your, a follow-up question, if there is, you said, ever a debate between a parliamentarian's interpretation of the rules, and you said we could refer it to legal opinion. Is that legal opinion binding on the body?
Interesting question. I think I'd probably have to, and I hate to sound like I'm pushing it off, I'd have to talk to the city attorney about that. I mean, hopefully we don't run into parliamentary issues. If we do, and people are in disagreement with the ruling of the parliamentarian, then certainly the council has a right to table the issue before you and seek other advice. I mean, that's the way I would think I would handle it, rather than, the idea of a parliamentarian is to settle those differences during the time that they come up. And, there's a lot of, I guess what I want to do is make sure I'm on safe ground here by saying that the parliamentarian typically the mayor can accept what the parliamentarian is ruled and move the question forward. But I think I'd like to research it a little bit more in case we come to that situation. Tonight, I would stand with the the Rule 38 to have it in place, to have your rules in place. We've been, it's March now, and it's something we should have done in January. But I think the rules now are specific to what the council actually does on their rules and order for their performance as a body. So I will work with the mayor, make sure I have my facts correct, but at this point, I think it probably will be useful to move these forward.
Does that answer your question? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Yeah, I support moving these forward tonight, but I will say that I will have a future amendment with Rule 32. It's public discussion at hearings. I've discussed this in the past with some of you counselors or some of my fellow counselors. It's always really been at the discretion of the chair or the mayor with public hearings, but there was a long-standing practice that when it was a public hearing, the applicant did not get to use that opportunity to then add more evidence or whatnot. So I'm not sure how I would craft that to change that. And again, the rationale here is that the applicant has a first reading. Well, they have a new business, then they have a first reading. They may even have a workshop. So there's ample opportunities for any applicant to submit whatever they need to. The public hearing is for the public, and I've been present many a times where I can see it on the faces of the public that feel intimidated when the first person to get up there to speak is an attorney that represents or an expert that represents the applicant, when they had time after time after time to discuss whatever their position is on it. It really should strictly be for the public, because once we close that public hearing, there is no more opportunity for the public to speak. So it's just something that, like I said, I would like to see clarified so that, going forward, we had that situation last week. I wasn't going to make a big stink out of it, but it did resonate with me when it was like, okay, well, the first person up happens to be an applicant, a paid for, representative of the applicant, when there was clearly members of the public that don't come here often, don't speak publicly often, and I can see, and I have seen in the past where it discourages people from speaking. So it's just something again.
Councilor Johnston, did you wish to make an amendment to that tonight, or do you want to
Well,
give more thought on
just
it?
move it forward, but because
Okay.
I don't have the language to craft it, and I don't want to do it on the fly.
Okay.
So I just putting it out there that maybe next meeting I have an amendment once we adopt these.
Okay. Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a follow-up to what I said, but before I get to what I said, just to offer a suggestion for what Councilor Johnson was talking about, just perhaps some sort of language to the fact that for a public hearing, members of the public, no one affiliated with a project would have first dibs, essentially. So essentially ensure that if there is, so you don't gag anyone who wants to speak, but if they have anything to do with the project in mind or the issue in mind, that they would have pretty much last dibs. So I suppose that would be something to consider as a compromise on that. And as far as my points that I made, I'm not going to offer anything tonight pursuant to city administrators' research on the issue. That being said, I'm open to the idea of altering the 38 language at some point to say basically either parliamentarian could be a member of the council, city administrator, city clerk, or any other city official that the city council deems appropriate, though. I think that would be nice. It would be good language. I think it would, again, prevent any sort of, optic issue, though, and try to keep, again, the fact that we've been doing this for so long without official parliamentarian, to the, city administrator's point, though, proves that this isn't an everyday issue. But at the same time, if we are finally codifying and simplifying in a good way our rules and order of business without aspirational stuff that we are going to get to later, I think it just, levels the playing field in a nice, positive way, though. But as I said, I will hold off any suggestions until we talk to lawyers and see what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Counselor Archer.
Sorry. Aye.
Counselor Parks.
Yes.
Counselor Gunn.
Yes.
Counselor Berman.
Yes.
Counselor Hatch.
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt.
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, that now takes us to item 9, and that is the administrative update.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item is RFP 2024 hot mix asphalt. The City of Saco is soliciting bids for hot mix asphalt for the period April 1st, 2024 to April 1st, 2025. The following roadway machine-placed hot mix asphalt gradations are being bid 9.5 millimeters, 12.5 millimeters, and 19 millimeters. Each gradation of roadway machine-placed hot mix asphalt will have 3 different pricing options depending on the final quantity of placed mix for each mobilization to a project. A bid shall be provided depending on the final quantity of placed mix for each mobilization project. A bid shall be provided for pickup loaded unit prices for 9.5 millimeters hot mix asphalt, 12.5 millimeters hot mix, and 19 millimeters hot mix asphalt, curb mix, and coal patch. Also included in this bid solicitation is the bid request for sidewalk paving, paving lot paving, driveway paving, and hand-placed paving, cold planing, reclaiming, and cement and bituminous tack coat. And the submittals will be accepted until Friday, March 22nd, 2024 at 1 p.m., and we also have this information on our website. Also, as requested at the last meeting, here is the schedule for the timeline for our budget process. So if anybody has any questions relative to that, let me know. One other item by verbal report is I'm working with Planning Department relative to the questions as it relates to minutes and having the identification of what people are in favor or not in favor of a particular public hearing issue. We are looking to change the format on the sign-up sheet to reflect somewhat like what the state legislature has, where you would have a place where you would sign your name and you would put in favor, against, and maybe no opinion. So we're working on that to get started. We also have a new software we hope to implement in the next few months that will help us identify very succinctly where on the agenda those items are discussed, so people that might want to get to those quickly will be able to do so through having the identification of the time on the actual public hearing time. And so if there's 2 or 3 public hearings and you're interested in the third one, hopefully we will have this so that the new software will be able to identify that. So at the very least, we're going to start with the new sign-up method, so at the very least people will know if people are for or against a particular item, and some people may have no opinion or don't want to give an opinion. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for City Administrator Bahenko? Okay, not seeing any. That takes us now to item 10, and that is council discussion and comment. Any discussion or comment? Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Just a couple items. Annual audit. So that's by charter due to council, and I know, Mr. Bohanko, you're new here, but that's due to council by January, so that by the first meeting in February, city council can designate any surplus funds for whatever use. My issue is that it's been late for 3, maybe 4 years. I understand part of that was COVID, whatever. However, I mean, we're out of COVID. It's really unacceptable, in my opinion, to not have the audit as we enter a new budget cycle. Perhaps I'm the only one that likes to geek out on it, but I've always found it beneficial to understand where we were at that close, the close of the following year before we move into the next year. So I'm just curious where we are with that. If my memory serves me correctly, it's been as late as June that we've been receiving them, which is effectively useless to me at that point. And if they're not capable of fulfilling the obligation, perhaps it's time we go out to bid for other services, because there are many companies out there, far more than they were 20, 30 years ago when we first went with RKO. And perhaps, maybe that's beneficial to us anyway, to get fresh eyes. Not a banker, but just I always believe that, bringing fresh eyes in, particularly after 20, 30, maybe even 40 years, that might be beneficial. But overall, just curious where we are with that. And then the Main Street parking lease, again, get it that, relatively new, but all leases are historically approved by the city council. And at this point, I mean, it's already been signed, but I would like to review it and at least accept what we've entered into. And then, of course, going forward, whatever leases come before the city for our properties, it needs to be approved by city council.
So, okay, which leach are you talking about?
The new parking lot.
Oh, okay. I'll check on that. May I speak to the
Yes,
issue of
please.
the audit? I totally agree with Councilor Johnson. This is unacceptable. And one thing I want to make note of is we had the information to them well in advance.
Yeah.
And I've had, we've been pushing them hard. In fact, today we sent them a very strong memo relative to why we think this is not acceptable. So, at this point, I totally agree with you, and I will be pushing RKO to get in front of the council ASAP. I don't know what else to tell you other than that, but one thing I do want to mention is I don't have a problem with going out for an RFP for a new audit firm. One thing you have to, though, understand, unfortunately, we're so far into the cycle right now, we wouldn't get any bids really for fiscal year 24 because we're so far down the line. That would be very difficult to put out an RFP now. But I certainly would, I'll talk to the finance staff and we'll review that and see. It would probably be next year to put it out, only because I've done this before, and if you put it out too late, you're just not going to get anybody that's going to bid on it. So what I would suggest is that we visit this sometime in the summer, and we talk about it a little bit more. I will be, like I said, discussing this with the financial staff, but I'm 100% with you because I want to see the audited numbers too as we go into the budget process. Unaudited numbers are okay, but it's nice to have audited numbers as you move forward.
Yep. Yeah, no, I support that. And again, my comments weren't necessarily directed at city staff. They've always been on the ball, at least from my recollection. They're rip-roaring ready to go in midsummer.
Right.
It's just been, the firm that we've been with.
Right.
And again, I understand there's outside, interferences and everything else. I've had this feeling for several years that perhaps it's time we just look in the future towards what else is out there. Maybe we stay with them. That's fine too.
I agree with you on that. In fact, I've asked, they're going to reduce their fee this year because I'm that unhappy with them. So,
I would imagine, being a new stop for you and not having that, it's, probably
Yeah,
equally
I
as
mean,
problematic for you as it
when
is
you're looking at the
me.
20, I totally agree. We're all over it. Short of dragging these guys in, kicking and screaming, we're going to try to get them here as soon as we can.
Was that it, Counselor Johnston?
That is it.
Okay. Counselor Archer and Counselor Gunn.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to follow up with that. Maybe it's not RKO is the issue. It's maybe they haven't been given deadlines. They may have adjusted to a behavior due to COVID and maybe not even RFP, but just find out what led to the delay. Because if the delay was like, oh, we had a soft deadline, well, I don't want to hold that against them.
They weren't soft.
It was a hard deadline to them?
Well, we've been after them since I've been.
Okay.
I mean, it's, again.
That's different.
I don't want to be out of compliance with the charter.
yeah.
And it's clear in the charter, and maybe that's, unrealistic. Maybe the charter's unrealistic. Perhaps, it dates back to the 70s.
But they get 6 months to do it.
Right.
The end of July 1st, they can catch up from July
So,
1st to December
I mean,
31st.
What's problematic for me is we're basically just accepting the fact that all 7, 8 of us are ignoring the charter. So again, from a public perception, what else are we ignoring? If that's a big one.
I just
that's
wasn't
our
sure if it was a
finances.
directive or their, lack of communication, or if it was what John had just mentioned, a little bit more sterner.
So I 100% agree with you. The December deadline, if it slipped a month, it probably, wouldn't be, but we'd have to have an explanation to the council why it slipped. So that's what I, intend to do for next year, is to make sure that come December, if they're not before us, I'm going to ask them to write a letter to the council to request for extension. So I think it needs to come before you, and they have to understand that we have concerns with them not getting the audit done in a timely manner.
Counselor Gunn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To switch topics to something even lighter, but not really lighter, though, because it's probably the most toxic issue of America in 2024. I just want to remind the voters of Saco that tomorrow is the presidential primary, and to remind voters of Saco that if you are not registered in a party, that we have now moved to semi-open primaries. So if you are unenrolled or independent, you are allowed to go to the polls and same-day register for a party for the purpose of participating in whatever presidential primary ballot for any of the major parties that you would like to. This was an initiative that the state did last year, and basically, I would simply say that the people that volunteer down there at the polls work a very long day, work very hard to ensure the basically the safety and the integrity of our ballots. And I would say, I would go as far as to say that I would think it's your duty and obligation as a citizen to go down there and participate in the process. Not to mention civic pride in the fact that City of Saco has consistently had the highest voter turnout for its population in the recent years in York County. And I'd like to see that trend continue. So get out and have your voices heard. Regardless of how you feel about all the noise and all that sort of thing, you have a right and you have a vote, and you should be down there exercising it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Johnston.
To follow up, because again, this is not something I partake in as an independent. Do I have to register into the party, or is it just fully open? I can vote either or.
Counselor Gunn.
I believe it's one of those situations where you basically register at the moment when you walk in. Basically, if you're an independent, you can take a D, an R, green independent for that matter, and simply put you can go to City Hall a couple weeks later and erase it and go back to being independent. So there's no
There's a waiting, that's where I was getting at. I think there's like a 45-day waiting
I think the
period to
waiting-
switch back.
I think it
Prior
might.
to an election, I believe, so.
I just know there was confusion in the past elections where
There is,
where
I
people
think,
tried that.
I think for processing purposes, though, they keep the, post once you register in a party, but once that day, passes, you go to City Hall or, call them up and say, I've changed my mind now that I voted, I want to be back to being independent. So it's not like any major obligation one way or the other. If anything, it encourages people that are on the fence that want to participate in the primary to actually participate. And that's, the goal is obviously to increase turnout, not to mention, I suppose politically, you could say, have a more moderate voices in what's increasingly a hyper-partisan environment. So if you show up as an independent to vote, it is, I think, win-win for democracy. That's my personal opinion on that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or comment from council? Okay, moving on to item 11, and that is executive session. Is there a motion to enter into executive session? Counselor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Section 4056, C, cell tower lease.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second? Second by Counselor Johnston. Roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to enter into executive session at 7:50 passes 7-0, and that will be in City Administrator's office. Okay, welcome back. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Roll call vote. Counselor Ratcher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to exit executive session at 8:04 passes 7-0. Is there a motion from executive session?
Madam Mayor?
Counselor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City of Saco authorizes the city administrator to enter into a lease agreement with T-Mobile USA Tower LLC. T-Mobile USA Tower LLC has agreed to pay the City of Saco a $25,000 sign-on bonus. They have agreed to change the term from 2055 to 2039. The monthly payment currently is $2,495.09. Each year, the lease increases by 3%. Due to the restricted use of this property, it is recommended to continue the land lease agreement with T-Mobile USA Tower LLC. I move to approve the order.
Motion has been made by Counselor Gunn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hatch. Roll call vote. Counselor Ratcher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Takes us to item 13, and that is an adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Johnston. Roll call vote. Counselor Ratcher?
Aye.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 7-0 at 8:06. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.